Hello. Okay. So my presentation and research is on autism or ASD, autism spectrum disorder. All right. So I'm going to start with the case study. Okay. So John is an 11-year-old boy at a public school in Chicago. He is in a class of 25 other students. John has been having trouble in his academic classes such as math, science, and reading. He has trouble focusing while in class and often misses assignments. John isn't disruptive in class and often keeps to himself. On the other hand, John excels in art and music. He is regarded as the top musician in his class and is always on time and focused. John has autism and has a narrow focus of interest. His interests don't include math and science, which cause him to fall behind in these classes. John is a very bright student. He just can't help but not succeed in these classes. He loves art and music and excels in these classes. John is limited by these interests. He faces these challenges every day because he cannot stay focused for his other classes outside of art and music. So John, he has he has autism, which one of the big things in autism is having like a narrow focus of interest. So while he may be good in some things like art and music, which he loves and like really like invests a lot of time into and focuses, so while he can do that for art and music, he can't do that for his other classes that he's not interested in, like science and math and things like that. Because it just doesn't really interest him. So he has a hard time like getting himself to stay focused, and his mind can wander, which is pretty common for people with autism. And I also like said that he's not disruptive, like, 'cause it's not like necessarily he's a bad student. He's just like talking to everybody and causing trouble. Like he keeps to himself. He just like he's kind of in his own world when he's in classes that he's not interested in. But he's able to like be really present and really good at music and art, which he loves. But yeah. Um, so for the definitions, the IDEA definition for autism is autism means a developmental disability significantly affecting verbal and nonverbal communication and social interaction, generally evident before age 3, that adversely affects a child's educational performance. Um, and yeah, it goes on more than that because autism is like a hard thing to just like put a blanket term over. So there's a lot that you need to like cover for it. And then the DSM definition for it is a little bit more specific and it's longer. But yeah, like the beginning, because they have a few different ways, because you have to be really specific with this to like kind of cover it all. All right. So how a diagnosis or identification for the specific disability is made. So diagnosing autism is it's pretty hard because it's not like, again, it's not something you can just like take an X-ray for and be like, all right, this is what's wrong. You have to go through a long process of like listing the child's tendencies, and trying to figure out what's happening, because it could be a lot of things. So you have to go through that process with talking to the doctor, and often usually will require like examination by a doctor, like while the student is in class, at home, things like that. It's in autism. It exists on a spectrum. It's not like if you have autism, you have this, and this. You excuse me. You usually have one or two. You have a couple different symptoms. So while you may have some, you won't have others. It's not something you can just be like, all right, you have this, and yeah, you have to do a lot of observation. Specifically at a younger age too, that makes things a lot easier. Okay, so possible causes for autism. Um, so most mental disorders, there's not like a single factor. It's kind of a lot. It can be a lot of things. One of the big things though is genetics. It runs in the families and is usually in it like if it can be common in families. So if your family has a lot of autism in it, then it's much more likely that your child is going to get it. So and it also happens a lot when there's complications with sperm and the egg. So like yeah, just sometimes things can happen. There can be defects. Also, a lot of like environmental factors, like drinking during pregnancy. Also, like when like being at an older age when getting pregnant, and also having like multiple pregnancies, like within or less than a year apart. These are all things that like can cause it. Yeah. So some stats. With a disability, 1 in 54 children in the U.S. have autism. Boys are 4 times more likely than girls to have it. And minorities tend to be diagnosed later and less often. And there's no medical detection. So like I was saying earlier, like it's not something you can just like give a blood test and or get an X-ray for. Yeah, like yeah. Um, Also, diagnosis has increased 178% since 2000, from 1 in 500 to 1 in 54. And this is not like solely due to like better understanding, because there's been a lot of other disorders that there hasn't seen this increase in. So that is pretty concerning, because it's growing at a super high rate. Because like 1 in 54, that's kind of a lot, especially compared to 1 in 500, which was just in 2000. So it's definitely like on the rise. Like sure, there will be some sort of like there will be some more room with our just like our advancing technology that will be able to like better detect it, but it wouldn't increase it that much. Um, okay, so just some specific characteristics. You can kind of tell by like how they interact with others, because it's like they're kind of in their own world, and yeah, like again, like this is not how it affects everyone. This is just kind of like some tendencies that are common, but yeah, like interactions are a little bit weird. Because they have a hard time processing and understanding emotion, like in both themselves and others. So like picking up on like subtle cues and like just things like that in conversation can kind of go over their head. So it makes it tough to like have like a normal conversation. And yeah, like because they're like a communication is just not like a not easy when you can't really like fully pick up on yeah, all the just like the subtle intricacies of conversation. Often they'll react to things with like a lot more intensity or a lot less, so you'll like overreact or underreact. That's pretty common. And trouble focusing in class, like that's definitely a big thing. But yeah, like I was saying earlier in the case study, it's not always just like every class. It's a lot of times it's just like the classes that they're not very focused in or not very interested in, so it's hard for them to focus. Okay, so some suggestions for educational accommodations. So working with parents in the school. This can be just like talking with the parents, and other teachers from the school, see what they have to say. This is kind of like the first step, because yeah, depending on how old they are, the parent definitely has like experience with what does and what doesn't work, at least some idea of what does and doesn't work with the child. which can help. But yeah, it's definitely not like a solve or like a total solution. Um, so yeah, if you want to talking to the parents helps a lot. They have a lot of insight into how because yeah they raised them. Um, and the school like other teachers in the school because they've often have experience as well with other kids that had autism. Um, special activities too. One that I was looking at, one website had a bunch of activities like the name game, which one second. Um, so this is just like a skill, like to how to introduce themselves to and learn someone else's name. Um, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. One game that I've done in class a couple times is you have to say your name and then you say like an adjective to describe yourself that starts with the same letter. So like my name's Simon, so it can be like sophisticated Simon or something. And then you do that, and then the next person has to say one for them and say all the ones that have been said before. So that's also like a memory game. So there's just like ways to help learn names and just kind of builds chemistry because that's just something that's like doesn't come easy. Um, all right, so one second. Um, Another game was how would I feel to be, or it's more of like an activity, not really a game. It's just like, especially when you're reading books and things, you kind of just ask yourself, how would it feel to be this person, which kind of helps um, the student like kind of it just helps them with empathy so they can kind of understand how it feels to like to be other people because yeah that's not something that comes easy. So just doing that helps you like kind of it just like kind of trains you to yeah just see other people's perspectives and understand that they're different than their own. And then yeah like one of the if it gets pretty bad like you can get professional help. This helps a lot because like people that have done this professionally, they know what they're doing. So they just will have a better understanding. I can give some like real techniques. Um, but yeah, that's what I found in my research. Here are some of my resources. All right, thank you. Bye bye.